Here's Clark, 4 seconds left. Clark, fire!
What happens when silence doesn't just break, but explodes into dominance overnight? No warm-up games. No gradual return. No rhythm to ease back into. Just 8 long months of complete absence. No competitive basketball. No real action. Nothing but waiting. And then suddenly, 19 minutes that didn't just reintroduce a player to the world, but completely shook international basketball to its core. On a suffocating, high-pressure night in Puerto Rico, Caitlin Clark didn't simply step onto the court for her debut with Team USA. She walked into chaos and turned it into complete control. While others struggled to breathe under defensive pressure, she operated like she had already solved the game before it even started. 17 points, 12 assists, 0 turnovers. Let that sink in. Not just good, not just impressive. Perfect. Clinical. Ruthless efficiency at the highest level of international competition. Every pass delivered with precision. Every read made a second before the defense even reacted. It wasn't just basketball, it was orchestration. A masterclass unfolding in real time. And while one player was quietly dismantling defenses and rewriting history, another name was exploding across headlines for entirely different reasons. Because during that same week, Angel Reese said something that no one expected, and suddenly, the conversation shifted from dominance on the court to drama off it. But to understand just how shocking this moment was, you have to go back to the beginning. This wasn't just any tournament. This was the FIBA World Cup qualifying event, a brutal schedule of 5 games in 7 days. A test of endurance, chemistry, and mental toughness. Team USA was expected to dominate. That part was never in question. The real question was simple. Who would take control? Head coach Kara Lawson made the safe, logical decision to start veteran point guard Chelsea Gray in the opening game. A proven leader. A championship-caliber player. Someone you trust in high-stakes moments. No one questioned it. But within seconds of the game starting, something felt off. The opposing team came out aggressive, full-court pressure, relentless traps, suffocating energy. Passing lanes vanished. Spacing collapsed. The rhythm was gone before it ever had a chance to develop. Even a seasoned veteran like Gray looked momentarily out of sync. The offense stalled. The energy dipped. The entire system looked uncomfortable. And then everything changed. Clark checked into the game. Now think about the situation for a second. 8 months without real competition. First appearance with the senior national team. A roaring crowd. A defense that had just disrupted a veteran guard now locking in on her. Most players hesitate in that moment. She didn't. Not even for a second. She read the defense instantly, as if she had already seen every possible outcome before touching the ball. She attacked the pressure instead of retreating from it. She pushed the pace before defenders could recover. And then the passes started coming, sharp, fast, perfectly timed. Teammates weren't even fully set before the ball was already in their hands, right where it needed to be. It was surgical. Calm. Controlled. Devastating. Within minutes, the entire tone of the game flipped. What started as tension turned into domination. What looked chaotic suddenly became effortless. Team USA didn't just recover, they obliterated the opposition. A blowout win. Complete control. And at the center of it all was a player who hadn't played in 8 months, performing like she had never left. And the records? They started falling immediately. That performance wasn't just impressive, it was historic. The highest assist total ever recorded in a senior national team debut. The fastest double-double in Team USA debut history. The first player, male or female, from any country to record a double-double in their very first senior national team appearance. All of that in just 19 minutes. Off the bench. After nearly a year of silence. And somehow that was only the beginning. Because once that first game ended, there was no going back. The secret was out. The impact was undeniable. And the numbers across the rest of the tournament told an even more outrageous story. Across 5 games, Clark didn't just contribute. She controlled everything. She finished with a tournament-leading assist total, dominating playmaking in every single game she appeared in. Not most games. Every game. Her averages were elite, but even those don't fully capture what she was doing on the court. Because the real stat, the one that tells the truth, plus minus, plus 109. That wasn't just the best on Team USA. That was the best of any player in the entire tournament. Every team, every roster, every star. Whenever she was on the floor, her team didn't just win minutes, they crushed them. And she wasn't even playing full games. While most featured players logged heavy minutes, she was dismantling teams in short, controlled bursts, making her impact even more terrifying. Efficiency at that level in that limited time is almost unheard of. Then came the turning point. Coach Nate Tibbett stepped in and made a decision that changed everything. He restructured the system, faster pace, more spacing, more freedom. A system built perfectly around Clark's strengths. The result? Instant destruction. Massive blowouts. Sharper offense. Higher efficiency. Total control from start to finish. And then something happened that almost never happens in professional sports. The coach admitted he was wrong.
Publicly.
He said not starting Clark earlier was a mistake. No excuses. No deflection. Just a direct acknowledgement that the obvious answer had been right in front of them the entire time. By the end of the tournament, the numbers were staggering. Records shattered. Opponents overwhelmed. A level of dominance that didn't just stand out. It separated her completely from everyone else. And then came the ultimate recognition. Tournament MVP. The youngest MVP in the history of the event. The first player to win it while spending much of the tournament coming off the bench.
Think about that.
She didn't even start most of the games and still outperformed every starter in the entire field. That's not just dominance. That's inevitability. And her reaction? No celebration. No grand moment. No attention-seeking. She just showed up to the next game and did it again. Because for her, the work never stops. The spotlight isn't the goal. It's just a byproduct. And if what she's doing on the court feels unreal, what's happening off the court might be even bigger. At just 24 years old, Clark isn't just building a basketball career. She's building an empire. Her endorsement portfolio reads less like an athlete's resume and more like a global business strategy. Partnerships with powerhouse brands. Signature deals. Historic contracts that go far beyond the typical sponsorship model. We're talking about the kind of positioning usually reserved for legends at the end of their careers, not players just getting started. Massive deals. Signature product lines. Campaigns built entirely around her image. Entry into luxury fashion spaces that most athletes never reach. And the numbers behind it?
Staggering.
In her rookie season alone, her off-court earnings dwarfed her actual playing salary to an almost unbelievable degree. A gap. So why did highlights not just her value, but her influence? Because this isn't just about performance anymore. It's about presence. Impact. Power. She's not just changing games, she's changing the entire landscape around them. And while all of this is happening, while records are falling, while brands are lining up, while dominance becomes routine, the noise around her keeps growing louder. Reactions, opinions, headlines, and yes, moments from players like Angel Reese that keep the spotlight burning even brighter. Because when greatness rises this fast, the world doesn't stay quiet. It reacts. And right now, everything is reacting to Caitlin Clark. They weren't just measuring highlights or box scores anymore. This wasn't about who scored the most points or grabbed the most rebounds. The evaluation had shifted to something far more powerful: cultural influence, commercial dominance, and the ability to move entire markets with a single performance. And in every single one of those categories, Caitlin Clark didn't just check the box, she redefined it. Her rookie season didn't simply introduce a new star to the WNBA, it triggered a seismic shift across the entire league. Attendance numbers didn't just rise, they shattered expectations. Arenas that had never experienced sellout crowds for women's basketball suddenly couldn't hold the demand. Fans weren't just showing up, they were flooding in, creating an atmosphere that felt more like a championship series than a regular season game. Television networks took notice immediately. Games featuring Clark weren't just drawing viewers, they were dominating ratings. Broadcast partners that had previously treated women's basketball as secondary programming suddenly found themselves sitting on a goldmine. Viewership spikes turned into sustained attention. Casual fans became invested audiences. And networks that once hesitated to invest began writing significantly larger checks, recognizing that something fundamental had changed. This wasn't hype. This was transformation. Clark didn't just join the league, she altered the business model surrounding it. Sponsorships increased. Media coverage expanded. Revenue streams grew stronger and more consistent. The ripple effect extended far beyond the court, touching every corner of the league's ecosystem. And here's the most important part. All of this happened in year one. Before a second season. Before long-term narratives could even form. Before most players fully established themselves. Basketball and business stopped being separate conversations. They merged into one continuous cycle, performance driving value, value amplifying performance, each feeding the other at a pace that kept accelerating with no visible ceiling. And as the league moved toward the 2026 season, especially with the Indiana Fever, that upward trajectory wasn't slowing down. If anything, it was intensifying. But to understand the full picture, you have to look at the other side of the story. Because while Clark was rewriting what a rookie season could look like, stacking record after record, reshaping offensive systems, and elevating an entire franchise, Angel Reese was generating attention in a very different way. On the surface, Reese had a solid rookie campaign. Leading the league in rebounds is no small feat. It commands respect. It demands recognition. But beneath that headline number, analysts began noticing a pattern, one that changed how those stats were being interpreted. A significant portion of her rebounds came from her own missed shots. Miss at the rim. Recover the ball. Record the rebound. Repeat. Technically, it counts. Statistically, it adds up. But context matters. Those rebounds were being logged the same way as contested defensive boards or high-effort plays in traffic, even though they originated from initial inefficiency. And as analysts across multiple platforms pointed this out throughout the season, the conversation started to shift. Because when you place both rookie seasons side by side, the contrast becomes impossible to ignore. On one side, Clark. Dozens of records. Offensive systems reshaped around her presence. Historic spikes in attendance and viewership. A player who didn't just perform, she elevated everything around her. On the other side, Reese. Strong rebounding numbers, yes, but accompanied by questions about efficiency, impact, and overall influence on the game. And that gap, it didn't shrink. It grew. Year two only widened the separation. Clark continued evolving, more assists, sharper decision-making, increased efficiency, and a level of control that suggested she was operating on a completely different tier. Not just as a scorer or passer, but as a system in herself. And she wasn't doing it alone. The roster around her added fuel to the fire. Aaliyah Boston anchoring the interior with elite presence. Kelsey Mitchell providing pure scoring firepower. Lexi Hull handling the gritty, unglamorous work that wins games. Sophie Cunningham bringing toughness and shooting versatility. Put Clark at the center of that group, and suddenly it's not just a team, it's a machine. A fast, fluid, high-efficiency system built around pace, vision, and relentless execution. And then came the global stage. A completely new environment. Limited practice time. A system not originally designed around her strengths. New teammates. Different competition. And the result? The same. Records fell again, this time compressed into a single tournament. 14 more added to an already historic trajectory. Different setting, identical outcome. At some point, it stops being coincidence. It becomes identity. Because what Clark was doing wasn't dependent on comfort, familiarity, or system design. It translated anywhere. Instantly. Meanwhile, the gap between her trajectory and Reese's wasn't just visible on the court anymore. It started showing up somewhere far more public and far more unforgiving. The marketplace. Because in modern sports, performance doesn't just earn wins, it drives value. And that value is measured in deals, demand, and brand alignment. Right now, that gap is massive. Nike is building an entire marketing engine around Clark's signature shoe line. Expectations aren't just high, They're explosive. Industry analysts are predicting sellouts within minutes. Not hours. Not days. Minutes. And that prediction isn't speculation. It's backed by data. Previous releases connected to Clark have already demonstrated immediate resale value, doubling in price on secondary markets. Demand is not only real, it's measurable, trackable, undeniable. Now place that reality next to what's happening on the other side. Reebok launched a signature shoe for Reese, with significant attention and anticipation. On paper, it had all the ingredients of success: a rising star, a major brand, a strong narrative. But the outcome told a different story. The shoes didn't sell out. The buzz faded. Inventory remained. Discounts appeared. What was introduced as a major moment slowly transitioned into a quiet presence on shelves. And perhaps most telling of all, marketing support began to pull back. Because brands don't operate on emotion. They operate on results. They track engagement. They monitor sentiment. They evaluate risk. They analyze not just performance, but perception. And perception matters. Every public comment, every social media post, every moment that shifts attention from performance to controversy, it all gets recorded, analyzed, and factored into decisions worth millions. Because sponsors aren't just investing in talent. They're investing in association. They want excellence, composure, consistency, a presence that enhances their brand, not complicates it. And when patterns emerge, patterns of distraction, comparison, or public friction, that becomes a factor, a measurable one, which brings everything to a boiling point. During the exact same stretch, where Clark was dominating internationally, breaking records, securing MVP honors, and reinforcing her position as the most impactful player on the court, the conversation took an unexpected turn. Because while one player was producing undeniable results, the other was still trying to claim recognition. Not tied to a specific performance, not anchored in a defining moment. Just the idea of deserving more. And that contrast? That's where the story truly lives. Because at its core, this isn't just about stats or awards or even individual games. It's about validation. One path is built on production, consistent, measurable, undeniable. The kind that forces recognition whether people want to give it or not. The other is built on presence, visibility, reaction, narrative. The kind that keeps a name circulating, even when the numbers don't fully support it. And as the spotlight shifts back to the WNBA, back to packed arenas and rising expectations, the tension between those two paths becomes impossible to ignore. The Indiana Fever aren't just entering a new season, they're stepping into momentum. A system built around precision, around inevitability, around a player who has already shown that limits don't apply to her. They disappear. And as the noise grows louder, as debates intensify, as the stakes climb higher than ever before, one question remains at the center of it all. When this era is finally defined, will it belong to the player who proved it every night on the court, or the one who kept trying to convince the world they had? And this is where everything reaches a level most people aren't even prepared to process yet. Because what we're witnessing is no longer just a comparison between two players. It's the separation between impact and illusion. Because when you strip away the noise, the debates, the headlines, and the endless social media reactions, what you're left with is something brutally simple. One player is forcing the game to evolve around her, while the other is still trying to keep herself at the center of the conversation. And that difference? It shows up everywhere. It shows up in the way defenses react before the ball even crosses half court when Caitlin Clark is on the floor. Entire schemes shift. Coaches panic. Traps come earlier. Rotations tighten. Not because they want to, but because they have to. Because 1 second of hesitation against her is enough to turn a possession into points. It shows up in the way teammates move when she's orchestrating the offense. There's trust. There's timing. There's an understanding that if you get open, even for a split second, the ball is already on its way. That kind of chemistry doesn't just happen. It's built through consistency, through vision, through a level of control that very few players in the world ever reach. And most importantly, it shows up in results. Not flashes. Not moments. Results. Meanwhile, on the other side, Angel Reese continues to exist in a completely different kind of spotlight. One that thrives on reaction. One that feeds on tension. One that doesn't necessarily require dominance to stay alive. And that's where things start to get uncomfortable. Because the modern sports world doesn't just reward performance, it rewards attention. And attention can be created in multiple ways. Through greatness or through noise. But here's the problem with noise. It doesn't hold up over time. Because eventually, everything gets measured. Efficiency gets measured. Impact gets measured. Market value gets measured. And when those measurements start stacking up side by side, the gap becomes impossible to hide behind personality or narrative. And that's exactly what's happening now. Because while one side of this equation is scaling upward, faster, stronger, more dominant with each passing moment, the other is starting to feel the weight of expectation without the same level of return. And fans can see it. Analysts can see it. Brands can definitely see it. Because brands don't care about who's trending for a day. They care about who's sustainable, who can carry campaigns for years, who can represent consistency, who can deliver value without controversy, who can step into the spotlight and elevate everything around them without dragging unwanted attention along with it. And right now, that answer is becoming clearer with every game, every performance, every headline. Because what Caitlin Clark is building isn't just momentum, it's inevitability. Think about how rare that is. In sports, momentum usually comes and goes. Players get hot. Teams go on runs. Then reality balances everything out. But this doesn't feel like a run. It feels like a shift. A permanent one. Because she's not just winning games, she's changing expectations. She's redefining what a guard can do, how quickly they can do it, and how consistently they can dominate at multiple levels simultaneously. And the scariest part, it still feels like the beginning. Because every time the competition adjusts, she adjusts faster. Every time defenses try to close gaps, she finds new ones. Every time the pressure increases, her control becomes even sharper. That's not normal progression. That's acceleration. And when acceleration meets opportunity, you don't just get a star. You get a face of an era. Meanwhile, the contrast continues to sharpen. Because on the other side, the conversation hasn't evolved in the same way. It keeps circling back to the same themes: recognition, comparison, validation. Not driven by overwhelming production, but by the need to remain part of the narrative, and that creates a dangerous cycle. Because the more you chase recognition without matching production, the more scrutiny you invite. And the more scrutiny you invite, the harder it becomes to control the narrative you're trying to protect. It's not just about what you say anymore. It's about what you can prove. And right now, proof is everything. Proof is what fills arenas. Proof is what drives ratings. Proof is what sells out products before they even hit the shelves. Proof is what turns a player into a brand, and a brand into a movement. And movements? They don't wait for permission. They don't need validation. They happen because the impact is too big to ignore. That's where this is heading. Because as the next WNBA season approaches, the stakes aren't just higher, they're different. This isn't just about wins and losses anymore. It's about legacy formation in real time. Every game is a data point. Every performance is a statement. Every moment either reinforces the narrative or challenges it. And for Indiana Fever, this season feels like the moment where everything comes together. The system is in place. The chemistry is developing. The